Welcome back, IB Economics students, to this video lecture. Now that we have known what PES is, how to calculate PES, we're going to talk a little bit about the determinants of PES, as well as the broad-ranging applications for PES. Now, and as well as interpretation of the PES figures. Now, in our last lecture, we have a defined PES as the measuring as PES measures the responsiveness and quantity supplied when there is a change in price. And then the PES equation is this: percentage change in quantity supplied divided by percentage change in price, and a percentage change formula is right here. We also give the real-life example of sneaker sales as well as changes in sneaker prices, and we give the example of the PES calculations. Now that we have gotten our PES calculations, what do the figures mean? Okay, the interpretations of the figures. So that's a very important thing we have to be able to understand. Not only do we need to be able to calculate the PES figures, we also need to be able to interpret the PES figures. Okay, so we also need to be able to interpret the PES figures. Now, there are basically 5 things you would need to know. Firstly, when PES is greater than 1, I don't want that to be bold or highlighted. When PES is greater than 1, then supply is price elastic. Okay, so when PES is greater than 1, supply is price elastic. When PES is lesser than 1, then supply is price inelastic. Price elastic means that changes in price will have great impacts on the changes in the quantity supplied. However, when PES is smaller than 1 or less than 1, that means its price is inelastic, and inelastic basically means that changes in prices do not affect the quantity supplied as much as it does. Okay, now here's an extreme example. When PES equals 0, what does that mean? That means supply is perfectly inelastic. Okay, that means supply is perfectly inelastic. However, when PES equals 0, or when PES equals infinity, although these are theoretically possible examples, however, these are very, very extreme examples. Supply is perfectly elastic. Okay, so when PES equals 0, or when PES equals infinity, then these are all very extreme examples. Another possible example is when PES equals 1. Okay, what happens when PES equals 1? That means unit price elastic. That means as every unit of price increase, a marginal equal, the marginal increase in price in quantity supplied is equal to the marginal increases in or decreases in the price of the good. So this is what the interpretations of the PES figures are. That is which is rather important, because not only do you need to be able to explain the PES figures, you also have to be able, not only do you have to be able to calculate the PES figures, you also have to be able to explain what the PES figures are. Okay, now, let's talk a little bit about application before talking about the determinants of PES. Now, what is the application of PES? Now, PES, of course, measure how much more good is produced when the price increases. Now, this is important for governments, because governments will be able to determine and predict what firms will be having more revenue because of the increased prices, as well as the increase in quantity demanded. Now, that is basically the application. I want to talk a little bit more about the determinants of PES. Now, what is the determinant of PES? What determines how elastic price the supply is? What determines the quantity supplied changes when there is a change in price? Now, what are the determinants? What causes the changes? Now, there are basically, I want to highlight the 4 major reasons. Okay, the first one is resource availability. Now, resource availability is quite straightforward. When there is an abundant supply of resources, then it's easier for you to produce more as when price rises. Okay, when price rises, for example, for let's say you are producing books or paper. Okay, you're producing raw paper. When the price of paper increases, you will want to produce more paper in order to capitalize on increased paper prices, right? But if there is a shortage of raw materials, in this case wood, then you will not be able to increase your production of paper. So research availability is very, very important. Now, a determinant of PES. A second very important factor is the production factor mobility. Okay, what do I mean by the production factor mobility? Well, producing a car, okay? When producing a car, the assembly line is extremely complex. It is not something that you could just change overnight. It will take swarms of engineers. It will take a lot of different research and hard work in order to change the assembly line from a car to maybe, let's say, another good. However, the assembly line for, let's say, clothes, a sweater and a t-shirt is relatively similar. You know, the machinery is the same, the training is relatively similar. The only thing that needs to change is basically the input, output, and designs. So the production factor mobility basically says how easy is it for firms to change productions from one good to another. Okay, so that's the production factor mobility. The third thing is the storage of goods. So let's say the demand for apples or bananas immediately have a good spike, and as a result, the price of bananas is out of the roof. Now, just because the price of banana is out of the roof does not mean that production will go skyrocketing in order to meet the results. Seeing as how the storage of goods is limited, banana only has like a shelf life of no more than, let's say, 2 weeks. So just because the demand goes out of the roof, just because the price goes out of the roof, does not mean the production will go out of the roof as well. Because goods are sometimes perishable. Goods sometimes may not be able to last as long as other goods. Therefore, perishable foods such as meat, such as produce like vegetables and fruits, will not be able to be stored and produced in a greater quantity. Okay, so that also comes in with another determinant of PES, which is production, complexity, and process. That of which, of course, factors in the problems of production, storage, and complexity, as well as process. An additional one I want to put in here is time. Time is a major determinant of PES, seeing as how logistical issues and transformation of data from sources will take time in order for producers to produce more of the good. Now, I hope this video is helpful in explaining the determinants of PES, as well as how to interpret PES, as well as a little bit of the applications behind it. Yeah, I hope this video is helpful, and I'll see you guys.